Good Friday morning, and welcome to Begin in the Word. Our text today comes from the Old Testament book of poetry, Proverbs chapter 10, verses 22 through 25. Solomon says, "The blessing of the Lord makes rich, and he adds no sorrow with it. Doing wrong is like a joke to a fool, but wisdom is pleasure to a man of understanding. What the wicked dreads will come upon him, but the desire of the righteous will be granted. When the tempest passes, the wicked is no more." As we mentioned yesterday, this text is part of a chiasmus, or reverse order. It's actually 5 groupings of proverbs that make up this overall larger proverb. The first section is on the tongue, we covered yesterday. Today's section on personal security. The middle bridge, sort of a humorous proverb, which is quite often the case in these type of chiasmus, on laziness. Then in reverse order, back to personal security, and then finally back to the tongue. These 3 make up this reflective or reverse, if you will, chiasmus. Today, we will take a look at section 2, verses 22 through 25 on personal security. These verses make up parallel proverbs. They are both, some of them antithetic, some of them progressive. We'll walk through each one and describe it. First proverb, verse 22, "The blessing of the Lord makes rich, and he adds no sorrow with it." First phrase, "blessing of the Lord makes rich," is a positive statement. It's a good thing, what the Lord does. The second statement is also a positive statement. Many of the proverbs we've looked at so far, we have described them as antithetic or opposite. In this case, it's progressive. The second statement adds to the first statement. It is parallel in that it is talking generally about the same thing, but it provides additional information. First statement is telling us that it is due to the blessing of the Lord that one is made rich. In the balance of teaching in the book of Proverbs, we learn that wealth and riches, personal security comes from the ethics of hard work, the ethics of being frugal, the ethics of being careful with what God has given to us. All of those teachings that the book of Proverbs is filled with, those are the things, the ethics that the Lord gives us, and those form the blessings that make rich. It's important to remember as you study in the book of Proverbs, when you talk about wealth and riches, not to transpose onto it our Western idea of wealth and riches, but rather think of it in terms of the world that Solomon and the others lived in when they talked about this. They lived in a world that was very much an agricultural world. Those people that owned farms where they worked hard, tilled the ground, were very frugal in what they did, cautious, very wise in the way they handled the blessings they were given, and treated these things as a blessing from the Lord, were grateful for what they had brought to bear. All of those ethics regarding personal responsibility, the Lord blessed that, and their agricultural efforts were successful. And so they understood that even though they had to work hard and that there were ethics involved in gain, that it was ultimately the blessing of the Lord. And so this first phrase is just telling us that concept, that our accomplishments in this world regarding our personal security ultimately are blessings from the Lord, even though they were required for us to work hard, to have all of those ethics that are described in the book of Proverbs. The second phrase then adds to it when it says he adds no sorrow with it. Now, he's not talking about riches in general. He's talking about the riches that come as a result of the blessings of the Lord. Riches that come from evil doing, from crookedness, from doing evil deeds. Sorrow comes with those riches. The riches that come as a result of the blessings of the Lord, sorrows are not inherent in that. Does that mean that people that work hard and have gain will have no problems in this life? No, it does not. What it means that in the end, the final analysis, in the aggregate, a person who works hard, follows the ethical teachings of the book of Proverbs regarding their well-being and security in this life, that path won't be introduced with additional sorrows, that it won't be all of the troubles that come with someone who follows a wrongdoing in the gain that they have. Second phrase, doing wrong is like a joke to a fool, is the first phrase. And it's a very negative statement. But wisdom is a pleasure to a man of understanding. It's a very positive statement. So this is an antithetic proverb. The first part of the proverb is a very negative statement. He talks about doing wrong or doing evil. And he says that a fool, a person who is foolish, considers their evil deeds like a joke. Now that's very relevant to us today. How many television shows do you turn on at the canned or piped in laughter at the foolish deeds and sinful activities of the various actors as they portray their parts on the television show, that those are portrayed to us as a joke. And we are encouraged to laugh at those jokes, these evil deeds. What a shame. No, the book of Proverbs is indicating to us there is pleasure to be found in this life, no doubt about it. Solomon was one who understood that there are times for joy. Indeed, we're studying a great book of literature and art. There are arts and things to laugh at, things to enjoy in this life that can bring us great pleasure. And even maybe it could be found in a television show or maybe our favorite movie. But instead of turning to entertainment where doing wrong is made to be a joke, we should turn to entertainment that's filled with wisdom. It's filled with understanding. And that those are the things that bring us pleasure. Those are the things we find time to laugh at. Good quality music, good quality theater, good quality television shows. Those kinds of things that make us whole. Be careful to avoid laughing at wrong. The book of Romans tells us in Romans chapter 1 that indeed it is when at the end of man's decay, when we take so light wrongdoing that we laugh at it, that it becomes our pleasure. The third phrase, what the wicked dreads will come upon him, is the first part of the proverb. It's a very negative statement about the wicked man, but the desire of the righteous will be granted. This is a positive statement. So we have here an antithetic proverb. It's parallel in that it's talking about the outcome, what we expect to happen. On the one hand, the wicked man expects bad things to happen, and the righteous has a general expectation of good things. There's a concept that's true throughout the book of Proverbs, and this is a great proverb to illustrate it. It goes very much hand in hand with a concept used in the engineering world here in our time called the Pareto principle. Pareto principle says that no matter what you're talking about, that there's an 80-20 split in reality. In business, you might, quite often it is said, 80% of your profit comes from 20% of your customers. Quite often it'll be said that 80% of your problems will come from 20% of your machinery. 80-20. Things that are generally true are true 80% of the time, but there is the 20% they're not true. Well, most of these proverbs we read are based on that principle, things that are generally true. It is generally true that the desires of the righteous will be granted. Now, this is not just because they're sitting in a corner being righteous. It's because they're doing the things associated with righteousness. In the context of this passage, we're talking about people who work hard, who are not lazy, who are cautious with the wealth that they've been given. People who do that, the people who live their life based on those righteous approaches to life and the things that they've been given, their desires will be granted. The righteous person does not have unreasonable desires. They have reasonable desires, family, comfort, security in their life. Those things will be granted. Well, it's an 80% truth. It's true most of it. It's a Pareto principle. On the other hand, a person who lives a wicked life, they know what's coming. I don't know how many times I've worked with people who will say because of their wicked deeds that they know what lies them in eternity, what lies before them in eternity. What a horrible thing to live in such a way that deep down inside you know what awaits you. And I suspect that is true with all of us. We know where we stand. We understand where we are in God's judgment and in the world around us. We know in our heart if we're lazy, if we don't work hard, and exactly the reason we are in the mess that we may find ourselves in. On the other hand, when we have success, we know where that success comes from. The Lord blesses us. It's our first phrase here, the blessing of the Lord. The Lord blesses us because of the righteous commands he has given us. Those things turn into the ethics that guide our life, and our desires are realized. Righteous desires are realized. The last phrase, when the tempest passes, the wicked is no more, but the righteous is established forever. The last part of that phrase was left off on my text here. We have really three phrases. First, we have this phrase, when the tempest passes, but then as a piece of that phrase, the wicked is no more. So this really makes up the first phrase, and the phrase that I have left off of my PowerPoint here, I'm sorry about that, is the phrase, but the righteous is established forever. So we have the concept that when a storm comes, the storm blows the wicked away, but on the other hand, the righteous endure the storm. This phrase or this proverb is probably in view when Jesus teaches in Matthew chapter 7, verse 24 on the house that is built on a rock. It's the very same concept. A person who builds their house on a rock, their house will stand. The righteous, you see, they're established forever because their house is built on the firm foundation of God's teaching, on a rock. On the other hand, a person who builds their house on the sand, well, any old tempest can blow it away. And that's the way life is regarding our security. We follow God's teachings regarding security, hard work, being frugal with the things that God has given us, not being wasteful. We follow those teachings most of the time. The outcome will be positive for us. Our desires will be righteous desires, and those desires will be granted. The storms that come in life will not disrupt us. We will endure them. The righteous will be established forever. On the other hand, if we're wicked, if we live a life where every wrong thing is just a joke to us, we don't take life seriously, or we know deep down in our heart the dread that awaits us, be careful when the storm comes, because that house fell and great was its fall. Thanks for joining us today. I hope as you have begun today in the Word of God, you will live out today in the Word of God.